being in your pink tutu. You're only 5 years old. You're about to go on stage to perform your first ever performance. But all you can think about is how fat you look in your tutu. Isn't that crazy? You're only 5 years old, but yet all you can think about is how fat you look. This is the crazy thing about eating disorders. It starts young, and it creeps up on you until you least expect it. I blame a lot of my eating disorders, and I don't want to say blame, but I think a lot of it is from how I grew up. My mom would always stand in front of her mirror, examining every little inch of her body, breaking it down until there was nothing left. The one person that I saw perfection saw every little flaw in herself. Eating disorders are crazy, aren't they? First, I'm going to talk about what is an eating disorder and what are the side effects and the lifelong effects. Then I'm going to talk about my experience and how I have overcome it. Finally, I'm going to be talking about how to notice signs and symptoms of in you or someone that you love. Eating disorders are the #1 most deadly disease in the entire world. This is from Eating Disorders statistics. I think this is very true. The reason why is because it's a silent battle. You don't know that somebody has an eating disorder until it becomes physical. You don't know somebody has an eating disorder until they look too skinny. But they don't realize you don't have to look too skinny to have an eating disorder. You can be the biggest person in the room and have an eating disorder because you have the biggest thoughts. 9% of the population has anorexia, let alone. The rest has some sort of other eating disorder like bulimia, or maybe they eat too much. According to Mayo Clinic, anorexia is a treatable disease that people lose too much for their body percentage. I find this kind of conflicting. Sure, eating disorders can be treatable, but not in some cases. A lot of cases, people don't get treated and they don't go into treatment until it's too late, until there's nothing left of them. Then how can you treat it? I also think it's funny that they say it's treatable, but yet it sticks with you for the rest of your life. Sure, I was 5 years old when I first had my first thought of an eating disorder, but it didn't creep up until I was older. People can start to have eating disorders in many ways. Maybe a traumatic situation, maybe a loved one passes away, maybe you have anxiety or depression, maybe it's a way to cope. This information is from OCD Foundation. There's another form of thing that you can have that gives you an eating disorder is body dysmorphia. Body dysmorphia is very real. I can look at myself and say, wow, I look so fat today, but all of you could say I look so skinny. It's the way you perceive yourself, the way that you look in the mirror, just like how my mom would pick herself apart. All she saw was fat. My first experience with an eating disorder is when I was about 11 years old. It was after dance practice. I hadn't eaten supper. My mom took me to go get Subway. I was so hungry I ate it in the car. I got home. She asked me to try my solo outfit. I tried it on, and all I saw was fat. I blamed it on how I should not have eaten that sub. I looked so bloated, but all my mom saw was skinny bones. This is body dysmorphia. That's the scary part about it. You don't see the things other people see. Another part that I realized that I had an eating disorder was I was at a birthday party when I was in 6th grade. They had angel food cake there. I really wanted a piece. I wanted one so bad. It's my favorite. Well, have you ever cried over food? Because I have. I wanted one so bad, but I wouldn't let myself have a piece of angel food cake because I thought I'd get fat. Now, to somebody, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. One piece isn't going to make you fat. But in my mind, I thought that I was going to get so fat from that piece. My mom used to struggle from an eating disorder too. She realized the symptoms right along. She made me eat that piece of cake, and I knew right then and there that I'd be so guilty after, but I didn't care. I ate it. After I felt so awful about myself until I laid my head on that pillow that night, I felt awful. My next, I guess you could say, I guess you could say my next episode was about last year around this time. I saw a scale in my house and I stepped on it. I wanted to see where I was at. I didn't like the number on the scale, so I decided from then on I was going to lose about 10 pounds. Now I know that doesn't seem very drastic, but to somebody that has struggled with an eating disorder, it's chaotic. Because once you reach that goal weight, it's almost like a drug. You want more and more and more of it. You keep losing and losing and losing. Until what? Until there's nothing left to lose. What, your life? That's the point it gets to. That's how serious eating disorders are. You don't realize that you've lost so much that there's nothing left of you. Well, my mom realized how skinny I was getting, so she sent me to the doctors. The doctors noticed how skinny I had gotten, so they sent me to specialists. Doctor after doctor after doctor, finally, somebody to help me. My first appointment, I walked on in there. The first question they asked me was, where do you see yourself when you recover? I told them, I want to go to college, I want to be a pediatrician, I want to join the military to be a combat medic. I want to have children and a husband someday. They looked at me and they said, you can't do any of that unless you recover. You can't be skinny and have children. It's not how it works. From then on, something switched in my brain. I said, I'm going to gain the weight back. So I forced myself. See, you have to switch your brain almost into thinking that anorexia and you are totally different. They're two different sides of your brain. So I started to call my anorexia Anna. I know it sounds stupid, but it worked. Anna is somebody that wants power over you. It wants to take control. You don't want to talk about your eating disorder. I don't want to be talking about my eating disorder, but I am because I'm spreading awareness. You don't want to talk about it because it wants to take power. It wants to stay in control. It wants to keep feeding you lies. So once I set myself from my eating disorder apart, this was my first step of recovery. 6 months it took me to recover. From last April to this last October, I have been on a journey, and it was so hard to recover, but I did because I want children one day. Seeing the numbers drop on the scale is so much less satisfaction than having children one day, I think. I finally recovered, and normally it takes about a year, they say, but I proved them wrong. I did it in half because I want to live my life how I want to. Everyone shows signs differently. Maybe you're counting calories on a nutrition fact, maybe you're weighing yourself. Maybe you overexercise. Maybe you restrict your food. Seeing signs in you or somebody else now needs to happen before it's too late. Take food out of you need to stop saying food is good or bad. Nothing's good or bad. Everything holds nutrition in some way or form. Having a family one day is more of a satisfaction than seeing numbers drop. Act fast before anorexia acts faster. Thinking you look skinny isn't going to satisfy anything. One day when you die, you're not going to be laying on your deathbed saying, I'm so glad that I was skinny. I'm so glad that I looked so thin. No. You're going to be saying, wow, I love the taste of those Christmas cookies on Christmas morning. Or, I love my favorite home-cooked meal that my grandma used to make. So act faster before it's too late.